Nice.
Hi guys, this is Coach Steven of Chessmatic, and today we're going to learn the 5 types of advantages. First, we have material advantage, which is the most important. Of course, the other types, you have to convert all these types of advantages into a material one. So when you get like the next type of advantage, which is piece play, you have to convert it into a material advantage. Then piece play is also called development. Then we have king's position. It's better to make your king safe, especially in the opening. In the end game, you can use your king. You can actually use it to attack. It's worth 4 points. It can attack already pawns. But in the opening, of course, you have to make your king safe. And then we have space activity. Well, when you have more space, you have more territory, you have more activity. And then it's easier for you to move your pieces out. And then last, of course, which is also very important, pawn structure. The pawn structure, you shouldn't have like triple pawns. Well, sometimes you can have double pawns because you get some open file for this. But most of the time, it's better. It's of course always better to have like connected pawns and strong pawns. Now, we'll learn more about how to evaluate chess positions here. So in order for you to evaluate chess positions, you have to know which side has more pieces. Like in a real battle, when you have 300 soldiers and your opponent have like 100,000 soldiers, I don't think it's good to battle that person. Maybe it's time to surrender. And so this rule goes to chess as well. You should not give up material because in chess you both have same strength in the beginning. So, but what I've seen in most newcomers in the game, of course, because they know that you have to control the center and stuff, they'll play e4, the opponent go e5, then d4, then here. This move still makes sense, but the thing is, the other kids, they would just go d5. They would just simply not care, c4 and then c5. Then they would play f4, f5, g4, g5, and this move goes forever. And they would start laughing at each other, and then they would, for a couple more minutes, they would start throwing away the pieces. Well, in chess, the thing is, the time you start caring for your chess, that's the time you start to see some progress. Well, here, after e4 and e5, the best move should be knight f3. Well, as black, you should already know, you should consider your opponent's last move. This is what we call prophylaxis in chess, like knowing your opponent's plan each time he makes a move. So knight f3 is attacking the pawn on e5. And of course, the best move here is to play knight c6 because not only you develop the knight, but at the same time, you protect the pawn on e5. Well, you cannot just play b6 here and then just give up the pawn on e5. That doesn't make sense. And if you want to give up something, you have to win something in return. But in this position, I don't think there's a compensation for giving up this center pawn. So knight c6 is the best move here. That's why you should not give up material. One pawn is enough to win. So then when you have this rule, you'll be able to know what to do next time. But sometimes the tactic is very deep. Like, for example, in this next game, after bishop c4, sometimes your opponent could like try to bait you in the beginning. Like now, knight d4. Okay, so if you're thinking that, okay, why did he give up? When he moved his knight, he actually gave up the pawn on e5. So are you going to capture the free pawn, or are you just going to take the knight? Here, in theory, I would also just consider capturing the pawn. It's actually good as well. Taking the knight, I think, is the much safer options, and you get like a positional advantage. But in this position, if you take the pawn on e5, and then you have no idea of what you're doing, then the opponent would play queen g5, and now he's double attacking the knight and the pawn on g2. Well, when you don't try to think of your opponent's plan, like in the white's next move here, if he takes the pawn on f7 and just give up the pawn on g2, you would simply lose the game. And I've used this game like when I was just 10 years old against a beginner as well, and it worked. I used this game as black, so I was able to checkmate my opponent actually in just 7 moves. Okay, after queen takes g2, now he's going to react because, of course, it's obvious that the black queen is starting to attack the rook, and it's almost like a checkmate if he doesn't have the bishop in c4. Now, if you take the rook, then we can take the rook. So, and here, black can win a lot of material, and it'll be like an easy game. But sometimes, most of the players would just go rook f1, and then here, they would like miss that black could actually win the pawn on e4. And here, of course, white doesn't want to. This is the best move to play queen, so just give up the queen. Never mind the queen. But of course, most of you guys don't want to lose a queen. It's like same as resignation. So like some people just play bishop e2. And then this is what my opponent did when I was 10. And then I checkmated him on f3. So that's what we call a smothered mate. So yeah, it's very important to have active pieces all the time. It's not good to have passive pieces. Like, as white, I always try to play bishop c4 in this position. Sometimes my opponent would go bishop e7, and then, okay, let's be aggressive. I play d4. Because bishop e7, it's a very defensive move. It's not bad. It's called the Philidor's position, or the Philidor's opening. It's not really bad. It's just defensive. And it's good to be a little bit aggressive in chess, like having the more important, like more powerful pieces, because yeah, of course you have to get the initiative as early as possible, because in chess you cannot win material when you don't have a good position. So here, if opponent takes, I continue with c3, and if he just, some would play here as black here d3, and others would capture the pawn. And if he doesn't, and if he reacts right away, if he captures the pawn on c3 right away, and we can go queen d5. I'm sure you all know what this move is trying to do. It's threatening checkmate. And there's only one sensible move for black here. He has to go knight to h6. That's the only way for him to survive this position. And now we're just going to take the knight, of course. With the bishop on c1, we have like what we call a removing the guard. So if black would capture the bishop, it's obviously checkmate. So he has to castle in this position. And in here, we can continue with just knight takes c3, because if you move the bishop, he might take the pawn b2. And now at least we have the advantage. This is what we call, like, we have more active pieces, and then the king, black's king's position is really in a bad shape, and he has like a bad pawn structure. We're going to win back the pawn. We lost anyways. So going back to piece play, it's very important that we manage to develop all our pieces. You can't expect black just to play knight c6, and after d4 he goes knight b8, and you would think that this is not like a fortress where he cannot get attacked. So in this position, this is the most basic example of why development is very important in chess. And if given this type of position, there is no way you can lose. Well, of course, white's pieces are just all out, and black is it's like a battle where like your opponents, all your opponents are sleeping, and you are awake. It's so easy to kill them. That sense, right? Next, we'll discuss about king's position and how important this is. Now, some players, again, e5. Let's just be. This is theory, so let's just focus more about e5 move. Now, after knight to f3, if opponent plays f6. So what do you think is the best move here if you're white? You can pause the video if you have one more time to think about it. Now, let's go back. So sometimes in chess, since it's made up of 90% tactics, you can actually sacrifice. Well, and when you sacrifice, you don't sacrifice without converting it into a positional advantage, or in a more simple sense, like converting it into a material advantage. For example, in this case, the best move is knight takes e5. Now we're just giving up the knight. Wow, really? Well, we do not give up the knight if we don't have any direct attack, like a forced way to win back the piece we lost. So we lost 2 points. But in this case, we are setting up a trap. So after queen h5 check, black has 2 options, either to play g6 or move the king. But none of those options can actually make him feel secure. Like after g6, we can just win the pawn on e5 with a check. And now now we're double attacking the king and the rook. Of course, if he moves the king, we win the rook. Now we're winning back the material loss. Queen e7 is the best move for black. We win the rook. 6. And we have king d1. And although we move the king, but it's just very safe in there. We can always play f3 and move out the rook. And his king is actually in more trouble than our king. So in this position, after queen to h5, well, the worst move is king e7. And now, as you can see, black's king's position is really like bad. So we have to take advantage of it. His king just gets exposed, and we can continue attacking it with bishop c4 check, of course. And in here is king g6. Then we can continue attacking this king. Because the king has no clothes, we can play queen f5 check. And he is forced to play king h6. Now it's gonna give us a free move, like playing d4. And this move is actually a check. The bishop in c1 is attacking the king. So he's gonna have to play g5, of course. That's the only move. Queen g5 does not work. Of course, it's a checkmate. Now we continue with h4. And in this position, we're gonna be using the rook next time. And we're at the same time we're pressuring the pawn because the bishop's pinning. And of course, if he tries to play something like bishop e7, there is no way for black to survive now. Well, he's gonna have to get checkmated in a few moves. There is no question about it. He can no longer survive here. So that is why putting your king to safety is very important in chess. There's even a rule which they say, like in one of the opening principles, to castle early in the opening, and it is very important. Well, of course, you're gonna have to understand each position as much as possible. So what is the best move in the position? But knowing these general rules, you're gonna be playing better in your next chess game. So after that, we'll learn about space activity. So what is space activity? Well, when you have more space again, you have more activity. So in the next example, we're gonna see a different type of opening. So what if opponent plays e6? This is still theory. This is what we call the French defense. Then we have d4. We go like put 2 pawns in the center. Opponent might play d5, and then we go e5. This is what we call a French advance because we advanced it, and this is actually a close opening. And the good thing about our position is that we have more space, as you can see. Look at black's light squared bishop. It's not really of much use as of the moment. But then opponent would have to break the center with c5, c3. You'll have to find a counterplay for the lack of space. They'll play knight f3, of course. We're gonna develop. And then if black would capture the pawn is actually a mistake. It's a positional mistake. It's not really a blunder. But the thing is, when we get rid of our pawn on c3, it allowed us to like freely move our knight on c3 like here. Like for example, if he checks, which is another mistake, we play knight c3. Because you can't take the knight on c3 right away right now, because you're gonna get in trouble. Because now my dark square bishop's gonna be so active, and that's what we call about piece play, to try to limit your opponent's piece activity. as much as possible. And in here, if black plays knight e7, we could go bishop d3, and then the castles is a blunder. Why? What do you think is white's best move here? You may pause the video if you want. And now we get to a position where white can perform a Greek sacrifice. The Greek sacrifice is trying to destroy a fortress, like in this example. Like black's shelter are the pawns on h7, g7, and f7. But we can just take this pawn on h7. Wow, isn't this bishop free? So, of course, if you're black and don't know the rule, like this type of position, you would just gobble up the bishop. But then knight g5 is gonna be like destructive. So if you play king g6 here, we go queen g4, and there are like all sorts of discovered checks with the knight. At the same time, you can play h4, h5, followed by h5 to attack the king. It's so hard for you to put your king to safety. The thing is, we got space, and then we exposed the opponent's king, so we converted our advantage from a space activity. Then it is all about the king's position. Then our piece comes to life because our pieces are so open, like as open as his king. Well, if he goes king g8, trying to hide his king, it'll be much worse for him. After queen h5, the idea that he's not allowed to defend with his light square bishop or put his knight on f6 because of our e5 pawn, he's not allowed to defend the h7. I mean, it only happens in French where this type of sacrifice usually works. There are some positions, but generally it's almost in the French defense. Well, the thing is, you cannot like move your bishop to f5. Bishops don't jump. So the only way for you to survive here, to stop the checkmate for a little bit more time, is to play rook e8. But here, queen h7, check. Black has to move his king, of course. That's the only move. Queen h8. Then we have knight g8. That's the only move again. We have knight h7 check. There's only one way for black to move. So all his moves are forced. Then we have play bishop g5. Now the bishop on c1 is going to be part of the game. And here, it's much better to give up the queen if you don't feel like resigning the game. Because if you play f6, or even knight to f6, we just play queen captures pawn, and everything's going to get really bad for black. f6 leads to checkmate. So, yeah, it's either black loses his queen or loses the game right away. So this is why in chess, we shouldn't just move our pawns on the 6th rank, just trying to defend our king and not strategizing. It's very important to know what to do to like develop our pieces, put them into pairs. Because of course you don't want to play a game wherein you don't have any chances of winning. So the next time you play chess, better use all your pieces and better not give up material. Well, the next thing we're going to learn is about pawn structure. So I'm going to show you another type of opening, the Sicilian defense. Okay, we have this knight f3, d6. I've been playing this opening since I was like 9 years old. And I've been really doing well with this opening because this is what usually happens in my Sicilian defense. I play bishop c4. And then, okay, here, there's a bad move like knight c6. I played this in my championship in a national tournament, like for kids. And then I simply beat my opponent. He cried, actually, after I won. Because the thing about me is when I was young, I was studying more about these traps. So, like, being a tricky player is very important. So if black would take, this is what happened in our game. I took and he loses queen immediately, and he just resigned. This is actually the 10th move. I can always remember that this is the 10th move because I beat my opponent once in just 10 moves. Well, of course, when you get to a certain level, of course, that's obviously you cannot use those kinds of tricks anymore. You're gonna grow old. You're gonna learn also. So you play bishop b3 here, and then bishop e7, castle, queen c7, and then in this position, one of my coaches told me that just to play bishop g5 and then castle and be a bit aggressive about my life. Knight c6, and here I just go king h1, and then some of them just go b5, and now I would start by playing f5. He captures the knight, I capture the knight, and then he might go e5. I play queen b3, then he might go bishop b7. This is the only this is a strong piece in black's camp, the bishop and b7. That's why it's important to eliminate this. So the best move here is to play bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. And now it's your turn. What is the best move for white in this position? And since we know that this bishop on b7 is a very strong bishop because it's attacking at e4, well, we also have quite a strong bishop, but it's not as strong as the bishop on b7 if we really understand the position. So it's better to trade off this bishop with the bishop on b7. And here he can take the bishop, and we can take the bishop, and he might be able to play queen d8. And now we reach a dream position. And a dream position is like a position where we know where we simply know what to do, where it's just so comfortable. Black doesn't have any initiative. And in this case, we have like a knight on an outpost. So it's a Tarish knight. It's impossible to get rid without sacrificing, like, for example, in this case, your rook for this knight. This knight is like an invincible knight. And the black's bishop is really passive. It's just not working because his bishop cannot even attack the pawns that are fixed on the light squares. He can only defend his pawns. So he's just going to be waiting for what's white's opponent is next, what's white going to do next, but like in this example. So here, now if white plays something like rook d1, now white has a threat, of course. He's trying to capture the bishop and win the pawn on d6. Like, knight takes bishop, queen takes knight, and then queen takes pawn. So we converted the fact that the black has a backward pawn and a bad pawn structure, because yeah, this is a backward pawn in d6. Like, usually when you have like a backward pawn, there's an outpost in front of it. So backward pawn is easy to target because pawns are like the main weaknesses of an opponent's camp aside from squares, because they are very slow. So it's easy to eliminate them when they are weak. So in this case, black might react with rook c8, because if you capture the bishop, it's not so good, because now he might have a counterplay with queen captures queen, or he could go rook takes c2. So it's not the right time for us to convert this to a material advantage. We have to play c3 first, and he has to go rook c6, and then we can start with a4, trying to achieve a better piece play. And here of course, I think he has to take the pawn, rook takes pawn, and he has to defend this a6 pawn, and it's impossible to defend this like we defend this. Now we have rook a1, and then we're gonna grab it in the next move. And if you try to attack the b2 pawn, you can just go b5. And now you're gonna have a lot of weaknesses. Maybe if you go rook to b8, white could even continue with b5 and just have like a dream, dream position. So if you take, it doesn't make sense because white's just gonna checkmate black in a few more moves. Or maybe you could go rook c8. And you cannot take with the queen because, again, queen captures queen is next. So yeah, you should not like have backward pawns in your opening you should try to consider like having them like better position in each like game. So what happened in this game is Black's mistake was maybe because he played e5 and allowed and created like a weakness on d5 on the d5 square and the d6 backward pawn. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna be giving you a set of exercises so that you can learn more. And I want you to be the one to decide with what is it all about. Is it about king's position? Is it about piece play? Or are we gonna convert into the material advantage already? So yeah, here I'm gonna be giving you the position now. Knight c6, bishop c4, and then we have knight g5, which is a like a move that attacks the pawn on f7. And when I was young, I was always doing this when my opponent plays that knight f6. Um, even until now. But the fact that this is theory, the best move here is knight a5. Well, when I was younger, most of my opponent was just capture this pawn on d5, and it's a bad move. And I want you to prove this to me. Like, why do you think that white is already winning here? What is white's best move in the fried liver attack? What do you think? So let's go back to the topic. So after knight takes d5, white's best move now is to play sacrifice his piece actually in order to win back. I mean, in order to expose the king. So this is all about king's position at the same time, aside from having a good piece play, queen f3 check. We sacrifice the knight for the pawn because if the black's king moves now, we take the knight and we're up a pawn, and the bishop and queen is trying to checkmate black. And then we also have like the e4 square as an outpost. Black's pawn on e5 is weak, so white is just totally winning. Well, the best move for black might be king e6, but then we have the pin and the queen, and this is theoretically a better position for white. Now we can continue with knight c3, and the rest is history. You have to study this for your own. This is about king's position. If you really know about this, it'll be much easier for you to win when you reach this kind of position, especially as a starter. This is very important. Now, next is let's tackle about something else. A new opening. Let's play like something like in the Caro-Kann defense, the d4, d5, and then we have e5, bishop f5, and this is a very common opening and a common move, common position in the Caro-Kann defense. When you play e5, advanced, there are only two reasonable moves here: bishop f5 and c5. But okay, bishop f5 is the more is played like I think 70% of the time. This is the one which good players play. Here you can play g4, and that's because I'm really aggressive in my chess when I was young, so I play g4. And bishop g6, then we go with h4. And sometimes players don't know about this opening, so they just play h6. And then we attack the bishop on g6. Of course, he has to move the bishop. Now he plays bishop h7, and then we play e6. And if he captures the pawn, we sacrifice the pawn. But why did we sacrifice? What is this all about? What is the best move for white now after we sacrifice the pawn? So the best move is bishop to b3. We're going to exchange the bishop, the strongest piece, black's strongest piece, rather. If it takes our bishop, then we take, well, let's see a move which, like, checkmates black, like, for example, if he wants to go e5 here, like play knight d7, wow. We are going to get checkmate black. Wow, only 10 moves. But of course, he's gonna be thinking. So maybe he's gonna play knight f6, trying to attack the g4 pawn, but it's not really free because well, if he captures this pawn, we got queen to g6, and still he cannot play knight b7 because he gets checkmate. Maybe he's gonna go queen b6, then we go knight e5, and we have a plan here already. So of course he has to move his rook because if he doesn't, like here, we win the rook, and again, there is just no counterplay. And the thing about this position, like for example, rook g8, we can play f3. Plays knight d7, we can play f4. If he takes, we take. He cannot take the g4 still. We have the double attack. He goes there. And it's funny because, yeah, this is all about piece play. Look at black's rook and black's bishop, black's square bishop. How can how, how can they even move out? So if they can't move out, they're just waiting to get captured. That's the thing. That's the beauty in chess. In this position, black is stronghold. He has no space, but this speaks more about piece play. He will not be able to like move out his bishop and rook, maybe forever. So yeah, that's the Karuken defense, and it's all about piece play and getting more space. So next, I'm gonna show you an example of why pawn structure is important. I'm gonna be showing you an endgame. Actually, I'm gonna be setting up the position. Let's set up the position here. Host first. Put the board. Gonna insert the position. Put the king here. So you have to remember those things about putting your king to safety. It's really important for your chess, and knowing about tactics and knowing about prophylaxis as well, because it's gonna come out handy in the future. And knowing about pawn structure, there was one game where I lost because I forgot to play a6, just one move. Because when my opponent can play a6, the pawn onto a6, I would be in a lot of trouble. All my pawns get weak. So, and that was a very important moment for me. So here, this is a game. It's white to play. What do you think is white's best move in this position? So let's go back to the topic. Going back, we now reach a position where our pawn is on g5 and the opponent's black pawn is on g6. And how can white win this? White can win this by playing queen to e5. We liquidated the position since we are sure that we are already in a winning position once the queen's exchange. Of course, black can move his king, we win the queen. Simple as that. He has to take, king captures queen, he has to move king f7, and we're gonna take the pawn on g6, and it's gonna lead into a simple win. Well, one important thing here is that in order for you to win, after taking, he has to play king h8 here, and then we take. In order for you to win, you have to play king h6. This is the only way to win. Yeah, you just study it if you want to. Well, if the pawns were one step backwards, let's put the pawns one step backward. Let's insert position. Let's not save it. Like now, for example, let's put the queen here. So it's white to move. And if the pawns were one step backwards, in this position, you're not going to win. Because if you play queen e4 now, he takes, you take, king f6, king. He simply has one more space like below. So in this position, the time you take the pawn, this is actually a drawn position, a theoretically drawn position. Of course, black has to still prove it, but this is just a draw. Well, those are the things that are important, knowing how to evaluate position. And this is, I think, also the way computers evaluate chess positions. They look at pawn structure, they look at piece activity. Of course, they will try to find a way because they're so analytical that who can reach a material advantage first. Because in chess, you cannot just checkmate your opponent right away. So this is a very important thing to remember, these types of advantage. So you'll have a better idea next time how to strategize and to just get the initiative. And then when you have converted your advantage already to material, then you can start simplifying, like exchanging the pieces and liquidating it into a one endgame. Thank you all guys for listening. I hope you learned something from this lesson. Again, I am Coach Steven of Chessmatic. If you have some questions, please feel free to email me, yapkimsteven@chessmatic.com, or you can visit our Facebook page, Chessmatic, or you can go to our website, chessmatic.com. Have a good day. Goodbye.